This video is going to cover distribution. So to begin with, let's talk about what distribution is. Distribution means that if I have one number on the outside of the parentheses, which means to multiply, I am going to duplicate 2 copies of everything on the inside. So I'm going to duplicate 2 copies of x and 2 copies of 1. So if I have 2 copies of x, that means I multiply and I'm going to have 2 x's. And if I duplicate 1 on the inside, I'm going to have 2 duplicates of 1 is 2. So remember that distribution means I'm going to multiply what's on the outside to everything on the inside. So let's go ahead and get started. Use the distributive property to remove the parentheses. So one thing that I want to point out is sometimes people might look at this problem and they might say, oh, there's a like term, 8 and 2, I'm going to combine it. But one thing that I need to remember and keep in mind is that these parentheses act as a barrier, kind of like the Great Wall of China. Whatever's on the outside of the parentheses cannot enter what is inside of the parentheses with addition. I can't just combine them. What I need to do is I need to duplicate everything that's on the inside. I should have 8 copies of u. So that means I have 8 u's. I'm going to also multiply, I'm going to duplicate 8 copies of 2. 8 copies of 2 gives me a total of 16. And once I have multiplied everything on the inside, then I'm done. This would be my simplified and final answer. So let's try that again. Use the distributive property to remove the parentheses. I am going to use multiplication to get rid of these parentheses. I need -6 copies of -5u. So I'm just going to multiply. What is -6 times -5? That's a grand total of 30 v's. -6 multiplied, you remember we are multiplying, -6 times +4. -6 times +4 gives me a total of -24 u's. So notice I have -24. I need some sort of symbol, a plus or minus in between the 30v and the 24u, and because it's a negative, I'm just going to kind of treat it like a minus sign. And last but not least, I'm going to multiply -6 by -6. -6 by -6 gives me a positive 36. And that would be my final answer. So it's your turn. Use the distributive property to remove the parentheses. Pause the video, try this on your own, and when you're ready to continue, press play. All right, what should your answer be? It should be -18u, positive 24y, and positive 12. And that would be my simplified answer. Now you might say, why don't I combine any of the numbers that are left? Notice that they are unlike terms. This term right here has a u, this term has a y, and this term doesn't have anything. So these are not alike, they don't have the same variable, and I'm going to leave them separate. Okay, let's practice this distributive property, but what do we do when we have a fraction on the outside? So I'm going to use my calculator again, and I'm also going to kind of teach you a trick to doing it by hand. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply what's on the outside by the inside. I want 2/3 of a copy of 6. Well, that's kind of hard for me to do in my head. So here's option number 1. Go to my calculator, and I'm going to type in 2/3, arrow over, times 6. So what is 2/3 of 6? It is 4. That means I have 4w. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to multiply 2/3 by -9. What is 2/3? 2/3 times -9. And I get a grand total of -6. Over here on the left-hand side, you'll see that. So -6. So that simplifies to 4w minus 6. Now I told you could do it by hand, and here's the trick to doing it by hand. When you multiply a fraction by a whole number, multiply the numerator by a whole number. 2 times 6 is 12. And then divide that by your denominator, divided by 3. 12 divided by 3 is 4. I can do the same thing. 2 times 9 is 18. And 18 divided by 3 is, 2 times negative 9 is negative 18. And negative 18 divided by 3 is negative 6. So if you'd like to do it by hand, that's the trick. Otherwise, use that calculator to your advantage. All right, final time. This is a your turn problem. So I'm going to use the distributive property and simplify my answer as much as possible. So multiplying to both of the insides. Take a second, pause your video, and when you're done, press play. All right, 2/5 times 4 is going to simplify to, let's check that out. 2/5 times 4 is 1.6, or I can write it as a fraction, 8/5. And I'm going to go ahead and leave it as a decimal. That is okay. Minus, what is 2/5 times 15? Gives me a grand total of 6 minus 6x. And that's it. That's all I need to do is simplify, and I am done. If you have any questions, please reach out to your teacher. Go ahead and complete the homework assignment on Alex and take a screenshot of your percentage and make sure you submit that on Canvas.